Hey, runners, welcome to our Coaches Chat. My name is Coach Steve, and we are here to talk all things running to you guys. We have a great show today. I have Coach Ben also join us, and Ben and I are going to go through how to build your mental strength and 4 things we wish we knew as beginner runners. Now, as always, leave your questions below. Ben and I are going to take them one by one and answer them just for you. So if you have an upcoming race coming up, put that below. If you have a question about nutrition, put that below. We're going to answer those throughout the chat. But also, as always, we want to know where you are watching from. So let us know if you're watching in New York City, or if you're watching maybe out in California or another country. Is always great to see as well. Ben, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, 4 things as a beginner runner. I knew there's probably about 1,000 things as a new runner you want to know, but try to keep it short and sweet because, there's so much to know as a new runner. And I've been lucky enough with our group training to talk to a lot of runners. Actually, I bumped into someone last night here in our building that's doing their first marathon this year. So there's always questions. And I know, Steve, we have a lot of things that we're always still learning as runners, but 4 things kind of up there, but hopefully we can give you some input and info today to help everybody out there as they either begin their running journey or their marathon journey, getting back into it, whatever the case may be.
That's right, guys. And like I said before, put those questions in the comment section of this chat. We will answer those a little bit later, but I definitely start off by talking about mental strength. Now, Coach Ben, this is something I think as a beginner runner, I didn't even think I needed. I was like, put on running shoes and you go outside and you just run, right? But there's a lot of importance that needs to be played on building that mental strength. So you stay strong on the runs, not just physically, but mentally. So Ben, we'll start with you. Kind of what is your first tip for building mental strength?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, Steve. I think everyone thinks running, just put on some shoes, go outside and go. And it doesn't really take much more. And in short, it kind of is, but you want to, what helps, at least when I was beginning to run, even now, is you want to visualize the run, whether it's an easy run, a long run, a workout, a race. You want to have a visual picture of what you're hoping to do. And I find that to be, when someone kind of told me about that as a runner, I was like, wow, it really opened my eyes in a lot of ways. One, to help me run so I wouldn't fall down, but it opens your eyes up to what's out there as a runner, what you can go through. Because when you begin to visualize what you want your run to be like, it helps set a path to what you're trying to achieve when you're out there. It's important to look at that because if you just go out there, and some days it's good to go out there with no goal. If it's an easy run, just kind of go out there and let the mind wander. But if you're out there for a specific purpose or a reason, or the workout's very important. Some runners out there may be training for the TCS New York City Marathon or any one of the numerous other marathons we have in a very jam-packed fall marathon season. Those long runs become very critical out there. So visualizing what you're trying to achieve on that run is key because you want to try to have a picture in your mind of what you're trying to do, maybe even looking at what race day may look like, when you're going to drink, when you're going to take your energy gels, when you want to pick up the pace, if you're working into your run, as you start off slower, as you slowly, gradually build into your workout, or even to the race, when you may want to be on pace and stuff like that. So trying to tap into that a little bit more can help. It also gives you a reason to be out there. It could relax you because then you kind of know where you're going, what you're supposed to be doing, kind of lays out a nice pathway to get through that. And some other things that also it helps you be strong and it helps you be, and happy as well. Because sometimes you're out there on a run, your mind wanders, you have no idea, an hour has passed, you're like, wow, I'm just kind of cruising through this. Where if you have a goal, a picture when you're out there, it is so key. And then I think as we all want to, you want to kind of be in the moment too. And I think, Steve's going to talk about being present and what that means in some of the runs.
That's right. I think definitely the next section for building mental strength is being present in your runs. And this is something I recently started doing during, quarantine, staying from home, working from home. We all had a lot of things going on in our lives, usually not so good things early on in the pandemic, and taking the time to take every mile by mile, not thinking about what is going on the rest of the day or how I'm doing 10 miles today, not thinking about how I'm going to feel mile 9, but focus on mile 1, that 10 minutes, that 7 minutes, that 11, whatever, how long it takes you that mile, and then focusing on the next mile and really focusing on the run itself and each mile by mile, and try not to write off a bad run early on. So run, as we know, maybe you've ran marathons before, every mile changes. 1 mile can be great, the next mile is bad, and then you get over that hill and the mile is great after that. So really focusing and being present on each mile is going to help the visualization that Ben mentioned, but also stay focused on that run and the purpose of that run. Go for it, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and then as he said, when you're being present in your run, it's key because there's going to be moments in your run where you want to connect with things and things are going to get uncomfortable, whether it's a workout or a race. At some point, typically, there's going to be times where even just having a rough day, you're going to get uncomfortable at times. So while not only being present, having a purpose or a why sometimes can be so key to kind of getting through, as we like to call it, a rough patch, or that rough patch on a training run or in a race where you are bound to encounter something along those lines. So staying present in your runs, but then connecting those with a why can get you through some of the more challenging parts of what you're trying to go through. Um, Sometimes when you're out there and you're like, hey, why am I here? Like, okay, I'm out here for myself. Am I here for a family member? Am I running for a charity? Something that really connects to a goal, a drive to keep you going, because there will be moments out there, especially if someone's out there doing, their first marathon coming up. The tail of the tape is you're going to hit a patch where it's going to be like, wow, this is challenging. Because 26.2 miles is a long way to go. So having those, a purpose out there, whether to dedicate a mile. I've done that before myself. The last, 6 miles of a race, every mile is for somebody. My mom, my dad, a sick friend of mine, a loved one, my wife or my son. Trying to connect those miles to while you're out there. You can also do that on a training run. Have a purpose while you're out there. If you're working for a charity, sometimes usually a charity is near and dear to someone's heart. I have a lot of friends that run with different ones, and just focusing in on that, whether you go by the charity itself, if they're on the race course, or remembering all the times you're out there, all the times you're with your teammates, connecting with that. Those things can put a smile on your face. We've had a few coaches out there in all of our years past say, when you smile, it makes the pain go away or the discomfort go away. And it is so true. So finding that purpose sometimes can brighten your mood, put a smile on your face. And then in that moment, whether it be for the next quarter mile, half mile, mile, whatever it is, all that kind of melts away. You find yourself kind of in the moment again. Because again, when you're out there, things can go sideways, things can go bad. I've had my own experiences. I think, Steve's going to touch on a bit when those negative thoughts do come in. How can you kind of work through those? So, Steve, why don't you talk to our runners about if the negative thoughts do come in, what they can do to kind of work through those?
Yeah, the important part is anticipate that those negative thoughts are going to approach you. They're going to happen. I mentioned earlier when I was talking that the running marathon, the first mile is great, the second mile is great, the third mile might not be great, but just expecting them to happen is going to prepare you better for when they do. So you want to be mentally prepared for the race, but you need to be mentally prepared for when those negative thoughts approach and what you're going to do to kind of push them aside. So the first thing is expect them to come. You're going to have them in your training run, as Ben mentioned. So what are you doing to overcome those negative thoughts? That takes practice. You shouldn't be surprised that your brain really also wants you to stop doing something hard. It's something hard. Your brain's saying, I don't want to do this. I'm going to go sit on the couch. But how are you going to move your mind to focus on what you want to do? That does take practice. Just go slow down, take a break. And you will overcome those negative thoughts, but you want to practice that in your workouts and anticipate once again that they're gonna come during your runs. Ben, we have a ton of questions and shout outs. Let's start with those shout outs from our runners. We have Jassy says, hey, we will have group of 30 runners from Team Rise to run this year, and everyone is excited. That is awesome. Thank you so much, Jassy. Gear from Oslo, Norway. Mentioning out of country, there you go. Ernesto from Mexico, ready for the race. That's awesome. And then finally, Susan from Vero Beach, Florida. Susan, thank you for joining us. Ben, we'll let you take the first question. It's actually from Jassy earlier. I'll toss it over to you. She says, some runners do long runs, 18 to 20 miles, but they run with 100% speed, same, what they pace they want to run on the real marathon day. What do you think?
Yeah, and this is a question that we get a lot. I get a lot of these questions from from the runners out there. I was actually just talking with one of our group trainers at our Tuesday Central Park workout. After the workout, he was asking me about this. And realistically, when you're doing your long runs should be slower than what your marathon pace should be. How we always go, we build speed during the week, you build endurance on weekends, you do not build them in the same workout. So your weekend long runs, or whenever you're doing your long runs, should be slower, typically anywhere from 60 to 90 seconds slower. I think the greatest example I saw recently was the American woman who came in third place at the Olympics. Holly, I think, Steve, was that her first name? It's escaping me for a second. I apologize. She actually posted her final long run before her race. And her final long run was, I believe, was almost 2 minutes slower than what she ran in Tokyo. 2 minutes. She ran like a 5.5 minute mile for Tokyo. She was 7.5 minutes. That's a classic example of an athlete understanding the purpose of their long run. It should be slower. You're building endurance on those days. You practice your fueling on those days. So while you may have some of your miles in your marathon training on those long runs be at pace, maybe towards the end to kind of get your body in tune with that, it should not be for the duration or the entirety of your long run, and typically should be towards the end of your training when your body is trying to get used to that. But yeah, your long runs on the weekend should be slower, typically 60 to 90 seconds. That is normal, because when you begin to taper down, your body magically, it's amazing how our bodies work, will pair up your speed with your endurance. So you show up to the race on race day, you're ready to go. And hopefully you'll be trained and ready for the race if you want to run, because that's what we always aim for. Steve, I'm going to throw the next question to you from Jose. He's asking about our different ways to get in or run our marathon through sponsors or our tour promoters. What kind of knowledge do you have for Jose today?
Jose, yeah, the best way, go to our website, tcsnycmarathon.org. The best way right now is through our charities. We have some great charities out there. Our own Team for Kids charity. You can get in that way, raise some money for a great charity you care about, and get into the marathon. There's different levels, different tiers, I guess you can call them, by how much money you can raise, but that is the best way at this point to get into the 2021 TCS New York City Marathon. And we have another question here. Wendy, hello, we are trying to reach you. You found us because of our 4 tickets dashed to the finish because we did not receive an email about this. Can you help further, please? For this one, I'll definitely email help@nyrr.org. Any tickets is the best way. Wendy, they are a little behind, as you know. A lot of people emailing their team right now, so give them time. But help@nyrr.org is the best way to get help with your dash tickets or any tickets. For those also listening, you might have similar questions. Reach out to them. Once again, help@nyrr.org. Ben, we'll toss this next one to you, and then we'll definitely jump into our next segment. Jerry asked, average miles per week for the next few weeks. I'm assuming we're training for the marathon here. I'm assuming to take this with that. How many miles are we running a week? Minimum she's looking for.
Yeah, again, I mean, not knowing the full scope of where your training's at, it's really hard to give you a number. You should be building at this point. You're in the final 8 weeks. You probably have some key weekend long runs or long runs coming back. So depending on where you are in your training, it's hard to give you a minimum number at this point. You can also look at more time on your feet, but at this point, you're probably in kind of the meat of your training session, so your mileage should be a bit more on the upside. Is there a minimum out there? There really isn't. Depending on what your level of, what you're going for, you're looking to finish, or you're going for a time, how much running you were doing before you started your training will be determining factors in where you may be right now. So in terms of a minimum, there's not really a safe answer in terms of, because I don't know where you kind of are. If you want to give us an idea of where you may be, we may be able to give you a better idea. But again, just because you are somewhere, I don't want to give you misinformation. So I give you a range of where you could be. Also, it depends on kind of where your weekend long run or your long run miles may be, just because, you're kind of in the piece there. So if you want to give us some more info on where you may be on your miles, the next time we come around, we'll maybe give you a bit more info or try to give you a better idea of where you could be. Again, all with caveats that we don't know exactly what your training is. And obviously, we want you to get to the start line ready to go and injury-free.
So guys, like I said, any questions you have, put them in the chat. Let us know where you're watching from as well. And Ben, I want to talk about 4 things that me and you wish we knew as beginner runners. I sent this question to Ben about 2 weeks ago. And he's like, I'll get it to you. And I see them now and I love them, Ben, because these are things that, your answers are like, I wish I knew that as a beginner runner. So if you're just starting up running right now, or starting back up running, you want to kind of a fresh start, this is kind of a good place to start. So I'll jump it off this time. For me, when I wish I knew as a beginner runner was how important running shoes really were. We're always told as a runner, you just need a pair of shoes and go outside. It is, that's pretty true, but those pair of shoes need to be for you. They need to be sized properly. It's not just your size of your normal slip-on sandals or your slip-on Vans. You need to size properly. And to do that, go to your local running store. They're probably going to size you up than what you normally think you are. For instance, I'm a 10, but I'm usually 11, but I'm at 11.5 or 12, depending on the shoe in running shoes. A good rule of thumb, take your thumb, I think I can see it there, take your thumb, and that's where you want your end of your toe here and the beginning of the shoe there, the top of the shoe there, to give yourself that space. Because what happens is your foot's going to swell up when you run. Kind of is what happens. Your whole skin swells up. If you run, your rings are going to get tight because you swell up on your hands too. And you don't want them hitting that front of the shoe during your long run. So you want to size properly. You want to fit it properly too. So there's overpronation, there's stability, there's cushion, there's non-cushion, there's racing flats. All very confusing, but the running specialty stores are really going to help you with that. Don't look at color yet. Look at color at the very end when you know what type of shoe and what size you're in. The very last thing you can ask, do you have any other color options? They might say no, and if they don't, go with that shoe that you're still going to buy with the wrong color. It's better than getting a different shoe in the wrong color. So that's something I wish I knew, because I definitely went to a box store and bought my running shoes first. So Ben, what about you? What is something?
Color is so important, though, Steve. The color is so important. I would go there. The red shoe, the blue shoe looks so much better than the gray shoe. I want the cool looking shoe, though. I mean, right? We're not supposed to go with the cool looking shoe.
I'm all about the flashy colored shoes, because I don't wear normally flashy colors, and the running shoes is the one time I can wear bright orange and it's okay.
It is so true. Yeah, it is so true when you're there. I mean, I know sometimes like my wife, she's so all bummed out because the cool colors that she wants in her shoes aren't always available. But as Steve said, it's always important to get the proper shoe, not the coolest looking shoe out there. I think it's so weird to talk about the 4 things. I think it's like 100 things I wish I had known as a beginner runner. Shoes were important. I had 4 different pairs of shoes I went through before I finally found the shoe that worked for me. So don't think the first shoe you're going to get, even if it looked good, even if it felt good in the sample run or the treadmill run you have, keep in mind that it may be 20 or 30 miles into the shoes are broken, and maybe even 50 miles. And hopefully you don't lose a toenail during that process. I spoke with someone last night who said she got her first black toenail and she felt like a real runner. And I was like, actually, that's more of a sign that maybe you may want to check your shoes out, because I've lost a toenail or 2 and it is not comfortable. So always, that's great advice, Steve. I love that. One thing that I wish I knew, one of the first things I do is, like, you do your workouts, you do your runs, it's over. You pop on the couch, you sit down, or maybe you get back into your everyday life and you don't go on. But to realize that recovery from that run, especially your long runs and your harder workouts, begins the second that workout was over. So what does that mean? That means you need to be ingesting protein and a carbohydrate, 3-to-1 mix, 4-to-1 mix, whatever you need to begin the process of recovery. You've done a hard work. Your body has exerted a ton of energy at that point. You may have little micro tears in some of the muscles that you have, because that's what happens when you're exerting that, because you're working hard and the blood's beginning to flow. The minute you stop, you've got to be thinking about, do I have my post-run fuel, whether it be a bagel with peanut butter, a protein shake, fluids, something to eat, because you need to start ingesting food immediately, because your body is now looking for something to recover. If you prolong that too much, if you go longer than an hour, now you're hurting the recovery process, and it makes it more difficult to get ready for your next workout or your next run. So now I wish I had known that, because there were so many times often I would get my run done, I would just fall down on the couch, and 2 hours later I realized I haven't eaten anything, I'm feeling lightheaded, I'm all woozy, I'm like, what's going on? It's because I haven't taken the steps to recover and get ready. Because not only is it important in the moment, but think about the time you're going to need to recover from like a longer run, especially as people get into their longer runs. You may be up there into the 16, 18, 20 mile range. When you're done, you are pretty depleted at that point. So making sure you have a game plan. Yes, pancakes are wonderful. They taste wonderful. I am a big proponent of going to brunch when you're done, but make sure you have some protein with that, eggs or something else, not just straight carbs, because protein is what your body will need. Coffee is great. It is a diuretic. You will not, be building back up. Think about having water. Try to get a sports drink. If you can get even like a smoothie of some kind that's got good nutrients in there, that's also a great option. But those are some of the things that I wish I had known, because it was so often you come home, hey, I just did 20 miles. I can eat whatever I want. What's the big deal? Well, I need to think about the rest of that day and 2 to 3 days down the road, when I may be back out there doing my next hard workout.
I love it. Very true. Next one, I would say for me, it was go easy on your easy days. I originally thought I want to go fast, so I'm just going to run fast all the time. The faster you go on every day, the faster you're going to be, right? You want to make those easy days super easy. And I'm talking to Ben mentioned a good example before. He mentioned Bali Sadel, who got third Olympics this past month. And I was looking at her Strava, and as Ben mentioned, her easy runs around 8 minutes per mile, guys. she's a 5 minute per mile marathoner. Her easy, so put that perspective for what you are. Do the math. If you're 8 minute per mile, you're doing 11 minute per mile, whatever. Numbers aside, it is easy. It is, your runs are those easy days. They're so slow that, you're like, not pedestrian, but you're in that place like, this is so easy, but you're saving that up for your hard day. That's tomorrow or the next day or your long run. So if you go hard every day, you're not going to have any energy for your actual hard days. And it's also going to impact your body, the muscles, the tendons, the joints in a negative way, where you most likely will injure yourself down the line because your body uses those easy days to recover from your hard workout. So make sure you are taking those easy days easy, and it'll pay off in the long run of your training, whether it's training for a specific race or just for life. You want to stay injury free as possible. And Ben, speaking of injury, our last one, wish you knew as being a runner.
Yeah, injury prevention. I mean, yeah, that's a good one. You teed up there nicely. Hope I get a home run on this one, not a double play, but we'll see what I can do here for you folks. Yeah, again, injury prevention, like Steve said, taking the easy days easy, that's the first one. Not everything has to be a hard run. Those easy runs, let your mind wander, let your kind of body go. Just take it easy. We like to do as you feel, just kind of roll with that, because that will lead into keeping your body strong. Because again, like we talked about before, you're going to be doing long runs, harder workouts. Injury prevention is so key, because you want to get to the start line as healthy as you can. Marathon training is tough. If it was easy, everybody would do it. So you got to really focus on keeping yourself as injury free as you can, as in best health as you can, taking care of your body anywhere and any way you can. Sleep, the number one. Get your sleep. Runners love to eat, runners love to sleep. Take advantage of that. So if you have an off day, it's okay to sleep late. Take the time. Your body will need that. During your taper period, you're going to want to get as much sleep as you can. But more importantly, especially now as people come into really the beefy part of their training, take those days, get the sleep, get to bed early. I'm sure a lot of us may be going back to work in the office here. If we already have not, you may be back in the office sometime or full time. Maybe your kids are starting to go back to school. Life is getting back into the flow. Things may be a bit chaotic. So try to prioritize sleep as best as you can. Another thing that I really wish I had known, I learned in the last few years, was good cross training. Running is great. Yes, you need to run, especially for marathons, because time on your feet, getting the miles in is crucial, because it's 26.2 miles. There's really no substitute for putting the miles in. But in coupled with that, you want to be doing good cross training, taking care of your body. This also helps injury prevention, because when you cross train, you're strengthening other parts of your body that running will not, whether it be the outside of your hips or the thighs, your glutes, your core. Core is so important. Balance exercises. There's those little muscles in your feet and your ankles that support you. Running, in essence, is a one-legged sport. You're on one foot at a time. Typically, both feet are not going to be on the ground at the same time. So having that stability, learning how to do those cross-training pieces is going to be key, because all those small things in the lower leg keep your leg strong, and it works up the chain, goes from the ankle to the calf to the knee to the hip to the lower back. All those things. So good cross training is key. What I will kind of, be careful with cross training, as Steve talked about, your easy days are easy. If you have an off day, that is not like a green light to go to Orange Theory or your boot camps or your CrossFits and really crush it, because can be as intense as your hard workout. So when you think about cross training, it could be as simple as body resistance. It could be something as biking. It could be swimming, non-running activities, but also keep in mind that it shouldn't be so intense or so tough that it becomes a hard workout and maybe interferes slightly, or if you need more time to recover, so it's harder to get back into those harder workouts or those long runs. So keep that in mind. But those are the 4 things that I think Steve and I had talked about that we were kind of curious about. There's probably 100 different ones out there. Runners, if you have any questions on anything that we did not cover, please drop it in the chat, because we'd love to hear. Maybe you're a beginner runner, maybe it's your first marathon. We had someone ask about the minimum miles per week. Put it out there. We'd love to drop some knowledge on you and get it going. So what else we got going on today, Steve?
Ben, our friend, wrote back about average miles per week next week. Not much of, I know you asked for time. It's still a little vague to me. They're looking for a 3:39 for the marathon. It's still a little vague. I think we're still looking for, I think for Jeer, if you could actually email us, training@nyrr.org, we can take your kind of personal one-on-one question there, training@nyrr.org. And please let us know what you're running currently, your mileage, what you've done in the past through the training cycle. We can maybe help you more there. Yin is looking for, Yin has a question. I have a question about how to get the start line. I'm in wave 5 and start at 12 p.m. Ben, you want to jump on that one?
Yeah, there should be. I know the baggage transportation options went up inside your NYR account. So if you log into your My NYR account, you should be able to see the information in there. It will give you a selection of times based off of your start time. Obviously, you have a little bit later start time, so you don't want to get to Staten Island super early and hang out there for longer than you need to. So within your NYR account, you should be able to log in, and you'll be able to pick out your transportation way to get to Staten Island. You'll have either the ferry over from Staten Island and a bus over from there, or you'll be able to pick up the bus from the location over by the library on Fifth Avenue. But log into your NYR account. The baggage and transportation options should be in there. So check that out. If you have any questions when you get in there or not sure where it is or cannot find it, please email help@nyrr.org and they'll be able to point you in the right direction. I have another question here, Steve, from Monique. Ashley's training for the marathon. Awesome to hear. Love to hear that. Said she had some issues on her nonstop fluid runs. So they've been a kind of a fight for her. Here I am in September, and I finally feel like I'm ready to run nonstop. Maybe it sounds like a run walk potentially. However, my body and my brain fight each other during that long run. Thankfully, she's injury free, which is always good to hear. Having a mental fight. We talked about the mental strength at the top of our show. So do you think it's my pace? Do I need to slow down? It's a lot of information going on here, Steve. So we'll kind of see if we can tackle
this. Yeah, I think Monique, I wish kind of had a little more information. I've never heard of a nonstop fluid run, so maybe Ben, you're correct on it's a run walk. Maybe she's fully running out for those runs. I'm going to take that as correct, Monique. If I'm wrong, let us know. But for this, we'll assume that. And it kind of sounds like your brain's telling you maybe to stop. Your brain's having a hard time. I get bored out there a lot of times in my runs, and it's a common thing if that's kind of what you're looking at here. If that's the problem, your body's like, I can keep going. I can run more miles or walk more miles. And how to keep your brain from saying stop. And for me, it's a lot of community. So I have a weekend Sunday long run crew that I meet up with every Sunday. And we run here in New Jersey up this road that's closed. It does help because I know it's easy. I always say, if you want to run fast, run it alone. But if you want to run farther, go with others. So if you're looking for the help in that long run, going with others will help you, whether it's one people or a group of you, maybe 5, 10, safe distance, whatever you need to do out there. That's a good way to keep that distance going. If you can't find anyone, podcasts are great. Stay safe out there, maybe one headphone at a time. It keeps more of I like that because it keeps me almost at a conversational pace running. I'm not going to get it taken away by the beat of the music. So I'm going to listen to a podcast, maybe an hour long that I'm interested in. And kind of help me keep engaged. I'm paying attention now to the story I'm listening to or the article I'm listening to than the actual mileage. I'm not looking at my watch every time it beeps. Ben, what about you? Any tips you have out there to kind of cure the boredom of the long run?
Yeah, I mean, the boredom in the long run, I always like to vary where I run if I can. If you live here in the city or an area with mass transit where you can kind of plan the route a bit more, I've always enjoyed doing what I call one directional runs. Meaning my start point is at one place, my end point is another, so I'm not having to retrace my steps. That way it does two things. I feel like I'm going further or farther on my run because that way I get to go a full distance. So if I'm doing like a 15-mile run and I'm like, wow, look how far I went, especially if you track yourself on Strava or any one of the tracking apps, you look at your map and it's like this huge line. You're like, wow, I just got that done. That alone can be a big mental boost. Plus maybe you have a destination where you're going. Maybe it's your friend's house, your favorite place to get brunch. Maybe it's a nice place to kind of sit down and soak the day in as you begin that recovery process. But I've always enjoyed, directions, from one point to the end, if you have that option. Maybe have your loved one come pick you up or have them meet you there. Or if you have a teenager learning to drive, heck, it's a good time for them to get out and get some time behind the wheel. As you get some time on your feet, it's a win-win for everybody.
Love it. We have another question from Maggie. How is NYRR handling water stations on the course this year? Maggie, this is a great question that I think a lot of people are asking, more just safety in general. We're still really working with our city, state health officials to make sure that you, the volunteers, the spectators, the staff, everyone is safe out there. So I think we're still trying to figure out details on this. Definitely just check our website. It has a FAQ page for the most updated, accurate information. NYC marathon.org. And it'll give you the most updated information. Always, you can email our team once again, help@nyrr.org, but I don't have how we're handling them to the date. I know we're going to have water out there for you guys safely and securely, but how it's going to be distributed, I think we're still trying to finalize the details. And then, Ben, let's go to this last question. And I think maybe from Jamira. Can a virtual runner run the marathon with their virtual running bib, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so I guess this is one of our local runners here, or maybe a runner coming in doing both of them. I believe I don't see a reason why, because your virtual running bib will not have a timing chip. But if you are doing the TCS New York City Marathon, where you're already traveling from Staten Island through the 5 boroughs and into Central Park, obviously you want to wear that marathon bib because I have your timing chip on it, because that's the most important one. If you're going to wear your virtual bib as well, just make sure it doesn't cover or impede the main marathon bib in any way. Maybe on the top in a separate area, possibly on your back. Don't really know the best way, maybe on your shorts or on your pants down below, depending on what you're going to be wearing on your lower half. Because I'm sure there's a lot of runners out there that will be doing both. Why not make the miles count twice, get 2 medals for the one course? I mean, that's the best way to do it, right, Steve? You do a race and get 2 medals, sign me up for that one.
I want that. Ben, before we wrap up here, we got last injury segments. Do you want to shout out these shout outs? I think I took the last one, so I'll let you kind of knock these shout outs out. Lovely people that are watching us.
Man, I can't, and I love our international flair from the runners. You see where they're listening from, and I'm just blown away by it. We have people from all over the world. They're giving us some love out there, so always love that. So we have Augusta from Rome, and I'm sure a question that a lot of our runners have, waiting to get information on travel restrictions coming into the United States. I know our ITO operators are working around the clock to figure that out, because that's a big question a lot of you have. So, keep an eye out. If you are coming with one of the travel partners, talk with them. They'll have the most up-to-date information for sure. We have Vince from Birmingham, England. Hello, Vince. Great to have you on. Dominican runners from uptown, Washington Heights. Always got to give some love to my people up in the Heights. I am as well uptown, so always enjoy that. Linda from the Netherlands. Again, another one of our beautiful international runners asking the same questions. We're all waiting on pins and needles with that information. Fingers crossed, we'll see you all there. Edgar, what would a Facebook Live be without Edgar giving us some love? Steve, always coming up from East Harlem. Edgar, thank you so much. We have Janira. We had a question from her. Hey, how you doing? We have Ruby, I believe that's from Michigan. And then we have Julie from Hotlanta. I was actually joking with someone this week who always complained about having to run up here in the Northeast in the summertime when it's always so hot. My thoughts always go immediately to our runners in the South. And in Florida, we're like, really? Here, hold my hydration drink. Let me talk to you about running in heat, because they have to run in it almost all year round. So thank you so much. We have a couple more. We have another one. We have Antonio from Queens and Harlem. Hello, Antonio. Hope you're having a beautiful Wednesday here in the 5 boroughs.
So guys, if you have any final questions, put them in the chat. Ben and I are going to talk about one more thing, get to 1 or 2 last questions. Ben, I want to end though on our injury segment. We're going to spend 2 minutes. Ben, one thing we haven't really discussed is just that warm up and cool down. We really talked about, connecting with your runs, being present, how to go easy on your easy days, injury prevention. But that warm up and cool down is something that all runners should establish within their running, their running language. It's something that I tell runners I personally coach one-on-one. If they tell me, hey, I got 30 minutes for a run and you're asking me to do 3 miles or 4 miles, I can't fit that in. I tell them, cut the last mile out and take that last mile as a cool down and warm ups, like take that 10 minutes, however long, and substitute that one, because that's more important sometimes than that 1 mile. So practice those on your runs before your run, get out there, warm up, and then afterwards cool down. Now, Ben, in our NYRR group training programs in the parks, you were out there last night. I saw the great photo. Thanks for the text at 9 p.m. But you guys do the warm up cool downs. Kind of talk about the coaches and the strategy behind it, what the warm-ups are like, not examples, but maybe, what they are. We can Google them, and kind of how it helps the runners perform at their highest level that day.
Yeah, again, and Steve touched on it, the warm-up and the cool-down are as important, if not in some ways more important than the workout itself, because you want to get the body warmed up. You want to get the muscles, loosened up, the blood flowing. And part of our warm-up drills that we do is we're also accenting or exaggerating the running form. So depending on what you're doing, you could be doing high knees, you could be doing skips, you could be doing bounding. There's different skips. There's A skips, there's B skips. You may do butt kicks, what other kind of things. But you're accenting the running form while you're getting the blood flowing. The warm up is so crucial, especially if you're doing a harder workout. Your tempos, your intervals. And maybe you're doing 6x400s or something out there, and you don't want to go into that cold. You don't want to literally get off the couch, walk outside, and your first thing you do is a 400 meter at a really hard RPE or very fast pace without properly getting yourself warmed up before. Last night we were doing our workout in Central Park. Actually, I know our Prospect Park runners in Brooklyn, they were doing a mile time trial. So they were definitely making sure that they got out there to do a proper warm up before putting in a really hard effort for their 1 mile. We were doing an effort-based workout last night, so we were doing all kinds of things to get ourselves ready for that. We also do side-to-side drills. We're doing like sachets or karaokes and crossovers. Running is always a linear. We run forward at all times, but again, injury prevention is so key. So working the outside of the muscle groups as well, the hips kind of extending, getting those hip flexors and abductors kind of working through there are very important as well. Because again, once you begin to run, especially your harder efforts, you want to make sure you're properly warmed up. I know sometimes when I'm doing a long run, if I'm having kind of like a moment where things just don't quite feel right, I've actually done warm-up drills on my long runs. Because sometimes that just kind of gets a reset. It kind of takes the mind and gets it ready for something. So I'm out there for a long run and I'm a mile or two in and things just don't feel right. I've been known to do some bounding real quick, or some quick high knees, or some butt kicks, or some quick feet, just to kind of break the rhythm up. And then I find myself, oh, okay, here we go. Now I'm kind of working through this and it feels a bit better. So you can use your warm-up drills different ways. And then when you're done, again, we talk about it, recovery begins the minute the workout is over. I have sometimes we do our tempo runs on Thursday nights. So our runners come in, they're working hard, they're coming in and they stop and they become almost to a dead stop. I'm like, no. Keep yourself moving, keep running, keep jogging or run, walk, keep your body flowing a little bit. The cool down is as important as the workout itself. You want to kind of let the body come down. As Steve said, you want to give yourself time. You want to give yourself time to kind of come off that workout, jog out for a little ways, half mile, a mile, whatever the case may be. And then even when you're done with that, doing some stretching if you have to. You want to stretch a warm muscle, not a cold muscle. Doing some quick, stretch, quad stretch, hamstring stretch the calves out, upper body, definitely your shoulders. Runners tend to go like this, so kind of working through there, working your neck, rolling your neck around, rolling your shoulders, putting your arms here, going like this, forward and backwards. That's what you want to go through that. But set aside time in your workouts, if at all possible, the beginning and the end. We do this in our group training, all of our parks, in Central Park, Prospect Park, and Astoria. We set aside time, beginning of the workout, we get ourselves warmed up, we have our workout, we cool down. That way you're kind of getting the more holistic piece of what your running is about, prevents injury, works on the cross training about when you're done. If you do some quick strength work, again, you want to be healthy and happy, but as a runner, that's what we're hoping for. Maybe we got some final shout outs and questions here, Steve, as we wrap up on a Wednesday. What a beautiful Wednesday it is.
Final shout outs, guys. Thank you again. We have Andre, greetings from Ohio, Earl from Queens, New York. We have Melanie says, hi, coaches. We have Tina from Bronx in the house. And we have a few final questions. Maggie says, follow-up question. When I ran in 2016 in the last wave, we had officials behind us with loudspeakers saying that the race was over and we had to get off of the street to the sidewalk only after mile 3. With the late start this year, is this going to happen again? So that was more of every year, every major marathon has the last vehicle, sometimes called sweep bus, some of the finish bus. It's basically there to say that we have to open the roads up to the public again. It's a slow, gradual opening of the streets. And it's bringing people from the streets over to the sidewalk. And that happens, it's about a 13-minute and 45 seconds per mile vehicle after the last runner has crossed that finish line. So it's a way to open the streets. It will happen this year. I don't know when you're starting or anything like that, but it's always going to be there. It's a way to just start breaking down the fuel stations, all the aid stations, the medical stations, and bringing everyone to the sidewalks or the side of the road where it's safe so that we can gradually reopen the streets again to the general public, because we only have permits out there for a certain amount of time. If you see it, it is not a sign that you need to stop. It does not mean you have to get in it. It is just the NYPD and the vehicle saying move over to the side of the road for safety reasons. And then Ben, I'll let you kind of grab this next one. I'll read it over to you. I never received what wave I am this year. Did I get an email? Curious because somebody already let them know that it's out there. How do they figure this out again?
Yeah, again, inside your NYRR account, there should be information about the wave you're in. If you're not really sure, it should be based on your best pace. I know on the TCS nycmarathon.org website. There are wave times and starts, depending on what the best pace would be. But check out inside your NYR account. There should be information in there on what wave you're in. Again, your baggage and transportation options will be in there, and that is based off of what wave you're in. So again, if you're in like a wave 2-3 as opposed to a 4-5, the options for your transportation will be based off of that to get you to Staten Island with enough time to do all the things you need to do before your start. But obviously, don't want you to have you hanging out on Staten Island any longer than you have to, because it's already a long day, as we all know. Just check it out inside there. If you have any questions, help@nyrr.org is always a good resource. Do give them some time. There are lots of questions coming through. Again, touched on international runners, lots of questions coming from them about when they'll be able to come in. We're getting everything going through there. Got one more question for you, Steve. Someone's asking about the 50 years of the TCS New York City Marathon. How many people have completed the 26.2 miles by now? I know we had our millionth runner a few years ago. We've got to be well over that, but I don't have a number. Do you have a ballpark idea where we're at these days, Steve?
I don't. I'd email a help team once again. They might be able to dig that up for you, but I don't have that information in front of me at the moment. It was a really good question. Be good trivia, kind of toss that at a bar trivia night. But really good question. I think that's it, Ben. I think we're all wrapped up. Thank you, Ben, so much for the chat today. Thank you, runners, for joining us. And we'll see you next time. And good luck to all of you training for the 2021 TCS New York City Marathon. We'll see you next time.
Bye, runners.